Welcome to For the Purpose Of, the podcast where we navigate the intersection of technology and the world of education. I am Sarah Wood, and I'm joined today by
Katherine Fredrickson
and Keith Tramper. And today marks the first episode in our series centered on AI and education. Our team has been deeply working in AI over the past year, and it's one of the biggest things we're asked to talk about. So we wanted to share some of the key things that we talk about with educators when it comes to AI here on the podcast. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to AI, so we're going to break it down into small chunks of learning for you. And today, we're going to be focused on AI literacy, what it is, why it's important, and how educators can support student AI literacy.
All right, we're going to start off with a question for you. And the question is, would you rather host a fall-themed scavenger hunt using GPS and geocaching apps, or design a digital interactive corn maze for students to solve in a virtual space?
I think it's pretty obvious which one I would pick with my love for geocaching, but this was kind of hard for me to actually pick one. I mean, obviously if I had to, I would go with the geocaching one, but we love corn mazes, my kids and I. And so thinking about it in that digital realm, that would be really cool for students to do. You don't have the frustration point, I think, of just cutting through the corn like I do when I'm we've walked this 5 times, I'm done, I'm going to make my own path, because it's a little bit more visual. But that's a really cool idea.
Mm-hmm. I just picture a Sarah-shaped hole in the corn stalks as you got freaked out and ran straight through it.
I create my own paths.
I think I'm in the same realm. I think there's a lot of potential with both of these options for some place-based learning, place-based education. But I think the corn maze would be more fun. Just thinking through, myself, I'm not very claustrophobic, but when I get in a corn maze and I feel like I can't find my way out, rather than getting frustrated, I start to get panic, right? So being in a virtual space would be way more approachable for me. But I feel like it would be kind of fun in a learning environment too, to have some clues throughout the maze that could help point you the right direction, that you could, I'm speaking from a secondary math teacher perspective, but have some math problems that you could solve, and with the correct answer you could find out which direction you might need to go and that sort of thing. So
when in doubt, create a Sarah path.
I think same as Sarah, of course, being big on geocaching, I think that would be a lot of fun, creating a scavenger hunt. But I don't know, I do like the corn mazes, but my experience with the corn mazes, we've always been given a photograph of, a map of what it looks like from above, so I didn't have to create a Sarah hole in the path. So I wouldn't say we were cheating, but I also had a small crew of first graders with me, so it was fun when we would do that for field trips and things like that. So I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle, truthfully. I think I like both ideas, so that's a hard one for me to choose from.
So moving on to our topic for today, as Keith mentioned, we're going to be talking about AI literacy and why it's important for not just students to know about, but also educators.
Yeah, so this idea of AI literacy, I mean, you could probably suss it out, but there's a lot of voices around the internet right now that are talking about it. And when I started digging into the idea of AI literacy, I wanted to, start with what was already out there. So there's a lot of places like Common Sense Education, Code.org, Teach AI, places that we've mentioned on the podcast before or that we just love and trust. Digital Promise, Ed AI Lit are also out there, but a lot of colleges have had to grapple with this before the K-12 arena did. They have a pretty good idea of what this AI literacy thing is. So in short, AI literacy is a person's ability to understand, evaluate, and use AI systems in a safe, efficient, and ethical way. So it's really about thriving in a world where AI is everywhere. And when I looked at all these different places, it really boils down to 4 key things. First is understanding how those AI systems work, then using those AI systems ethically and responsibly. Then the ethical side of things kind of comes up in here too, of evaluating those potential benefits and risks of AI, And finally, one that I think we will head into more in the future, but creating inclusive and ethical AI systems. So, Sarah, you want to talk a little bit about why it's important?
Yeah, and I think that why is huge because I think many people now understand the what of what AI is. So AI literacy is taking that a little bit deeper and saying, okay, this is the why of why we need to know about this and why our students need to engage in either using tools or talking about tools or having tools modeled for them. And I just keep on coming back to, as an educational system, what is our goal with students for when they essentially graduate or move on beyond the education system? And I think a lot of what we would like to do is we want to see students be successful contributors to the world around them. We want them to feel that they have a place in this world, that they can contribute, and they have the skills that in order to do that, whether they go to college or they go into a vocational school, or maybe they just go into the workforce, whatever their path might be. But I think regardless of what path they're going, it always kind of comes back to having a foot in that job market, whether they're actively searching for a job, working in a job. We're going to interact with people who have jobs. And it's really interesting, too, that, there's been a lot of different studies out there and that we're really seeing overall a demand for AI skills appear across a wide range of industries and geographies, which is kind of interesting. And knowing that AI is not something we're dealing with in just Michigan or, in the United States. This is happening across the world. And according to research done by Microsoft, a research project that they did all about AI at work and really kind of how it's here now, they said that 66% of business leaders say they won't hire someone without AI skills, which is pretty fascinating for me. And I think that is over maybe a year old at this point now. And I'm curious if they did that same poll again, what that number would be, because I feel like AI it's changing so rapidly and it's becoming baked into everything.
Yeah, and what I think is really interesting with these two is exactly what you're just saying, that it's not just about the jobs that are about AI. It's like normal everyday jobs in every aspect of the industry that require some element of AI skill.
Absolutely. And there are times that you might be interacting with someone and you in that role of the consumer where there is AI that is happening behind the scenes as far as maybe transactions or other business that you're doing. And so like we need to be aware of when it's being used, how it's used. It brings me back to that report where they said 71% of business leaders would rather hire a less experienced candidate with AI skills. And I think the broad part of that is when they say AI skills, because that is also rapidly changing.
Access to AI is an equity issue as well. We talk about costs. AI systems are extremely expensive, and this filters down to the user. It creates barriers for economically disadvantaged populations. We also are, talking about experience, and students who know how to use AI tools build valuable experiences, and that can be leveraged to perform at higher levels in their career, like you were talking about as well, Sarah, AI being important in the workforce. Access is also another important factor. Students who have schools, districts, and teachers that embrace AI will have an advantage over those who do not as well. So those are three important factors to think about.
Yeah, that cost perspective is really interesting to me. Like, we all know that in education, free tools go a long ways, but rarely is it that those tools stay free forever. And, if history repeats itself, which I think it will, because AI is so expensive, we're going to see a lot of these free tools start to charge.
It also makes me think of, too, the cost aspect of things. And it's not something you can necessarily put a number on, but it's that environmental impact of running those systems that you're saying are so costly, the energy that it takes to do that. And that might vary differently geographically, how it's impacting you just based on where these systems are run out of, or what fossil fuels or energy sources are in your area, and how they may have to start work overtime on, producing energy.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of makes me think, too, as far as so we have all these things. We know they're expensive. We know that we need to give students access to them. But how are students actually using AI? And I think that's a question that we are always curious about when we talk with educators, is they're like, well, how are you seeing students using AI? I think that's a very common question that we get. And that varies as well, too. And I think it depends on teacher comfort level, teacher knowledge, and then having the comfort to use that with students, but also the teacher end of things of just feeling confident in using that and knowing that the students will use it for good. There was another survey that was done by Microsoft, their AI and education report that was published in April of 2024. And it asked students how they are using AI. And the thing that rose to the top of the list, with 35% responding to this, is that students are using it to summarize information for them, which I totally use it for that as well. But it just made me think about how much are we inundating students with a lot of information at one time, where that is the number one thing that they need to use it for, to summarize and consolidate information for them. And then coming in at a hot second on that was to help them get started and brainstorm on their assignments. And that was another one that really resonated with me, because I'm like, I use that a lot of times, that same, approach with using ChatGPT to how, I have a lot of these ideas. How do I get them going? How do I brainstorm actionable items as part of this? And so a lot of students are using AI for the same things that we as adults are using in our jobs, which was really kind of fascinating for me.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think what we're speaking to here is AI literacy, right? The ability to use it responsibly and to use it to benefit your work. And I think sometimes in the education community, we hear about plagiarism, which, don't worry, we're going to get there in one of our future episodes here. But I think it's good to know that there are a lot of positives that students are using this for, and that it's not all misuse by students, right? Reminding us that, hey, there's a lot of good that can come out of this AI world that we're living in right now. So I want to shift gears here. So how can teachers support student AI literacy? And I know each one of us kind of jotted down a few notes of things we wanted to talk about, but Sarah, would you start us out?
Absolutely. I think when I saw this question, my brain instantly had to separate the elementary educators from the secondary educators, because a lot of things have age restrictions on them with AI, and that needs to definitely be considered in that conversation when you're building student AI literacy, is because those that are under the age of 13 cannot legally use a lot of these AI tools. Some are set up where they have that safe space where students can engage with those, but those don't always give that same experience as some of these other generative AI tools. So it really got me thinking more and more about how what we can do for those elementary students as well as secondary students doesn't even require AI, but really honing in on critical thinking. Because if we're using AI, we need to be critical thinkers. I attended a REMC webinar recently, and they identified the skills of curiosity, open-mindedness, analytical thinking, problem-solving skills, logical reasoning, skepticism, metacognition, resilience, communication skills, and ethical judgment as key skills that need to be considered when you're thinking about critical thinking. And I think the three that really resonated the most for me was that of curiosity, skepticism, and metacognition, because those are things that can happen at any level elementary or secondary. And it's not just something that we're building critical thinking skills in with students, but even as educators. I think we need to shift our mindset. So if we're talking about curiosity as a trait, so maybe students can use AI to help ask questions, generating inquiries about their topic, promoting deeper exploration. And whether the students are actually using that tool or not, that is something that the teacher can model. And then kind of thinking about it, if you're the teacher in that situation, you can most certainly use AI to generate curiosity among your students. Engage in conversations about stimulating questions or resources that encourage students to pursue new ideas. That is something that can take place without students touching a tool. So I think that is important. But then when you spark that curiosity, I think the skepticism is what comes next, is you need to be a critical thinker about what results you're getting. Evaluating sources. Is the data accurate that you receive back? Are you checking facts? Is it coming from a trustworthy source? How would you cite the information you put in there? Things like that. And I think that just lends itself to that metacognition as well, where you're really thinking about your thinking and what's there. And that's students and teachers alike. I think those are deep skills that we can never refine enough. And if you're not looking at your output from ChatGPT and going, I wonder about that. I'm curious where what data that was trained on or things like that. You probably shouldn't just be copying and pasting that into something else and calling it good.
Right. I think what you were discussing, Sarah, is a great segue for what I wanted to bring up. Basically, I just want to discuss some different activities that younger students can understand what AI is and how it's used. It might feel like at young ages, students can't really use AI. So this is why we should really talk about it. And with the computational thinking approach, we can equip students with some foundations for understanding AI when they're actually old enough to use it to learn. So I'm going to look at it from the 4 concepts, and I'm going to give just a brief example of how teachers can use this in their classroom, just to explain how these different approaches are used and how AI can be used. So for the first one, with decomposition, I think a classroom strategy would be just helping them understand how complex systems are by breaking them down into smaller parts. So an example activity could be, hey, let's look at a robot vacuum. Let's break down its tasks into smaller steps like find dirt, move around the furniture, and go back to the charging station. You can have students act out these steps to understand how AI systems work in parts. And there are other cross-curricular activities too, always, linking literacy to it, breaking down a book club or library app, or introduce AI concepts through stories about robots and AI helpers. The second one is pattern recognition, and this is identifying AI's use of data trends. So a classroom strategy here could be, using simple data just to show how AI finds patterns. So give students some colored blocks, ask them to sort them into patterns by color or size, then explain how AI does something similar when it finds patterns in pictures, like say recognizing cats by pointy ears and whiskers. You can also, another example I thought of was, students tracking weather over a week and identifying patterns, and discuss how AI looks at patterns like this to predict what the weather will be for the next day. When we look at the abstraction piece, this is just simplifying information for AI models. And we want to teach students how AI only uses important information, like how they focus on key details when drawing or writing. So an example activity for this concept would be asking students to draw a simple face using only a few shapes, maybe just using the eyes or nose, a mouth, but leaving out the necessary details. Then explain how AI looks for just a few key things to recognize faces, like how it spots eyes and noses without really needing every detail. I guess the cross-curricular activity could be like, say, math. If you're grouping objects based on one characteristic, like color or shape, you could explain that AI does the same thing by simplifying info when solving problems like that. And our last concept that I wanted to hit on was algorithm design. And this is creating simple AI-like processes. So basically, we're using real-life tasks to introduce the concept of step-by-step instructions, which is what AI algorithms follow. An example activity that a teacher could use is just asking students to create a simple algorithm to get ready for school. So, you could wake up, brush your teeth, eat breakfast, get dressed, have them draw pictures of each step, and then explain that this is what a robot or AI would follow to complete a task. You could do even like making a simple snack. I remember this YouTube video about a gentleman and his, having his 2 children making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and how frustrated they were because they were leaving out steps. So same idea, explaining that AI uses instructions just like that to figure out what to do. And like I said, it's really important to link literacy to these activities as well. A lot of AI concepts are linked through stories that you can find.
I think that's great. I love those examples for especially the elementary students to understand how things work through the lens of computational thinking so that when they engage with those AI systems, they have a better understanding of kind of what's going on behind the curtain kind of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just a good visual, I think, and it's very hands-on, very kinesthetic learning. And I really think that can provide some understanding of what AI is when they can actually use it.
Yeah. I know the computational thinking side of things, we bring this up a lot on the podcast, but I really appreciate your examples there, Katherine, too. I think they're like really approachable, even for our littlest kids. We can all work towards having a better understanding of how our computers work. So
absolutely.
I'm going to shift it to another angle here. As I dug into AI literacy, I saw so much overlap with computer science skills and digital citizenship skills and media literacy skills too. So I think when we look at all those different angles, and these are things that we've been talking about for a long time and are showing up in a lot of our classes, but they really support the development of those foundational skills and knowledge that our students need to be successful with AI. So when we think about that first bit of understanding how AI systems work, I mean, the computer science standards really hit on how data works and where it goes and how it travels across the internet even. Sarah mentioned earlier some of that environmental impact, and that is certainly impacted by how data flows in AI systems. We can also understand how they're trained and where some ethical issues might show up, especially around bias, and how to design things inclusively. So as far as the second piece goes of using AI responsibly and ethically, I mean, this is really talking about digital citizenship, right? How we interact with technology tools and how we use them for good in the world. And then evaluating the risks and benefits, still digital citizenship, media literacy, like I think Sarah was talking a little bit about, like being critical of the things that we see online. I mean, AI systems make it so easy to spread misinformation and disinformation in a way that looks legit, right? So we need those media literacy skills and those critical thinking skills to thrive. You can also see elements of the impacts of computing standards within computer science when it comes to ethics and how we design things inclusively. So when it comes to creating AI, I think that's really supported well by our computer science standards.
Thinking about what you said there, Keith, about being critical about that as you're building that media and AI literacy, I think a question that comes up, well, how can you tell by looking at an image if it's AI generated? And sometimes you can see about 16 fingers in some things, so you're kind of tipped off right there. But it's also like a good rule of thumb to like know what resources you have available to you to check that. And an easy one that's free for everyone to use is the Google Lens, like that reverse search. You can take an image, put it into there, and see where it comes up on the internet, if it comes up anywhere. So then you can, kind of use those critical thinking skills to be like, you know what, this isn't anywhere else on the internet. It potentially could be AI generated. It doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but also then if it is showing up on other places, what sources are citing that image too.
Yep, absolutely. I also don't want this to go by without mentioning that we do have resources in our REMC area, especially for our younger learners. We have a collection of books that are about AI, centered on the 5 big ideas in AI, which I know Sarah is including in EdTech Cheer this year, so I'm sure you'll hear in a minute an advertisement for that. But we definitely have some resources there. And 3 of our favorite places to go for AI literacy right now that I really think are good because any teacher, regardless of your understanding of AI, can really utilize these resources. They've made it approachable for everybody to use. So if you're going to teach about AI and teach this AI literacy side of things, code.org has a really great AI literacy program. They even have one for teachers designed to help you get up to speed on things. Common Sense Education is also, again, a great place to go. They do have a bunch of AI literacy lessons, and AI EDU is another one of our favorites. I really like I think they're called snapshots. They're essentially like warm-up questions that you can put in front of kids and just have a quick conversation about AI and some of the different angles of what AI is touching in their lives.
After reviewing those REMC 8 books, I think they're a fabulous link to a lot of AI activities. They really focus a lot on all the important things that are happening right now. And I think that's a great resource, actually, is your REMC library.
And I think it goes to what you were saying earlier, too, Catherine, is that literacy needs to be part of this process and this thing.
Absolutely.
And so our conversations, maybe that a book is a great starting point to jump into that, especially with the littles, where they can still be engaging in conversations around it, even if they can't use the tools yet.
Absolutely. It's very important.
Does cold weather and snow give you the blues? Let's spread some warmth and excitement through professional learning. By participating in EdTech Cheer 2024, you will learn about artificial intelligence and ways to leverage it in your teaching and learning, not only to save you time, but to prepare students for their future. This year, the timeline has expanded to give you even more opportunities to dig into content and try out new tools and strategies. Instead of the traditional 12 days, EdTech Cheer 2024 now spans 5 weeks. From November 1st to December 20th, you'll receive targeted communications focused on the 5 big ideas in AI. You will learn about perception, representation and reasoning, AI learning, natural interaction, as well as societal impact. Through this course, you'll get easy to implement strategies, scaffolded content, and activities to help bring AI into your classroom and professional practice. This learning is designed to challenge you to think about AI from new or different perspectives. Through participating in course reflections, you are able to earn up to 6 free sketch credits. Sign up today through the Kent ISD PD Hub and join EdTech Cheer.
Are you eager to embrace AI in your teaching? Explore the possibilities at Kent ISD's AI for Educators workshops. With 2 days of immersive learning, you'll gain expert insights, practical strategies, and hands-on experience to confidently integrate AI into your educational practice. At the Kent ISD AI for Educators workshops, you'll engage with essential topics like AI literacy, ethics, and prompt engineering. Discover how AI can boost your efficiency, enhance your instruction, and empower your learners. Spots are limited, so register now at bit.ly/AI4EDU-REG. That's AIFOREDU-REG. Hey PDXers! This episode's podcast PDX question is, what's resonating the most with you about this episode? And what is one small way that you can support your learners' AI literacy? Submit your response for sketches and see what others are saying at bit.ly/FTPO-PDX.
With Keith, Kath, and Sarah join on in, for the purpose of is surely for the win. With a wealth of techie treats, and sketches can't be beat. Now we all are back. Let's begin.
All right, welcome back. We're going to jump into our mailbag segment where we tap into our PDX community and just shout out a message that we thought was impactful and we wanted to share on the podcast here to talk about. So our message this time is from Steven, and courtesy of Speechify, we're going to have Snoop Dogg read this aloud to you all.
The way we approach our daily lives has changed dramatically in the last 20 years or so, and it continues to change at a rate that's almost mind-blowing. My students are experiencing life-changing events at a rate that I have never experienced. It's actually pretty scary.
Stephen, I think you're absolutely right. The pace is changing faster now than ever. It can be extremely overwhelming. And when you think about educators, they have a unique role in helping students navigate these types of shifts. And I think it's providing students with tools to support when this evolution is just so quick and so fast moving. So it's also important to be really positive and moving in that direction of how can we make our students grow with AI and teaching them to use it for the better of the good, and that there are benefits from this. But yes, it can be very scary.
Yeah, I think on that scary note, one of the things we talk about a lot with AI is, yeah, there are scary things that can happen and people use it in ways that harm. And I think it's important, though, to not dwell on that, recognize that they are there. But if we focus on all the scary things that AI can produce, we lose out on all the benefits and we become reactionary, right? We start to look at AI as evil and we try to block and we try to stay away from it and we don't talk to our kids about it so they don't develop those experiences that they need in order to keep up with this fast-paced world we live in. And I definitely get this sentiment, Stephen. It's scary how quickly it goes, but I want to keep it positive, right? And make sure that we help our students navigate it.
And I think even too, outside of the AI part of this conversation, I mean, I think back to, I'm not going to say how long, but when I was even in high school, it was kind of nice to wake up. Sometimes, parents would have the news on in the morning. You caught a little bit of it and you didn't really care because you're in high school and nothing affects you at that point, or so you think. And you could go your entire day without hearing any news updates. And now, like you said, Keith, in this rapidly evolving world, every 3 steps forward that we take, we're getting hit with new information, I feel like, whether it's coming from this source or this, or there's this AI tool, or we've got this other resource. Like, we don't get a break. Our bodies don't get a break from the onslaught of information that is coming at us on a regular basis, day after day. And I don't think, like, our bodies were actually, like, developed biologically to handle this, but it just makes me think back to, I think it was our last podcast episode, about how there is a time and space to separate from technology, get outside a little bit, because of those things that are just so constant in our life. So not just maybe going out for a walk, but like going for a walk and not having headphones in. I
feel like these AI tools, they're like 3-headed hydras. It's like you finally tackle like a couple of them and all of a sudden 3 more sprout, and it's like, oh my word. There's a lot. It's just a lot to keep on top of, and just familiarizing yourself and knowing what they are. And you really have to know what these are before you actually educate, students that are able to use these, that are old enough to use them, whether they're applicable for what they need or not. There's a tool for everything. So,
and letting go of the FOMO aspect of things. You don't need to know everything. You're not missing out on anything. That's all right.
Make it manageable for yourself, right?
Exactly. What is it? The JOMO, the joy of missing out.
Yep.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I need to be more of JOMO than FOMO.
Yep.
I think.
I think we could all stand to have a little more JOMO in our lives.
Yeah.
Put that on a t-shirt or a sticker. Have more
There
JOMO
you
in
go.
your life.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. We appreciate you being part of our PDX community and sharing your thoughts on the episodes that we have done. So if you're listening to this and you're not a part of our PDX community, make sure you go over to bit.ly/FTPOPDX. You can sign up there, and essentially, if you're listening to this episode, you can get free sketches for responding to the different questions that we have within our episodes.
That's it for this episode of For the Purpose Of. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this podcast, we'd love it if you'd share it with a friend.
Do you have a question? We'd love to hear it. Go to bit.ly/FTPOMAIL to ask. You can reach out and find all things EdTech at bit.ly/IamEdTech. And we will catch you next time on For the Purpose Of.
This podcast is a service of Kent ISD, produced by Keith Tramper, Sarah Wood, and Katherine Fredrickson. Edited by Keith Tramper. Original jingle music by Katherine Fredrickson. Our theme music is Neon Nights by Scott Holmes Music, and our ad music is Vienna Beat by Blue Dot Sessions. I have Control-Alt-Keith.
That's a good one. Control out, Keith.
Good.
This podcast is a service of Kent ISD, produced by Kent. I can't say my own name.
Control out, Keith.
That's why it was meant to be said. Control
Oh my
Keith.
gosh.